didn't know why Daddy wanted you to take an early nap today, but you were a good girl and obeyed without complaining. And now I have a surprise for you. Since you had a good rest, Daddy can now take you to the circus this afternoon.
Really, Daddy? The circus? That's wonderful! Daddy says that grown-ups are just like little children, too. They don't always understand what God does and why. They do best to just believe, obey, and trust His word like children do with Daddy. It's always best to do it 'cause Daddy says so. Do it 'cause Daddy says so. Do it 'cause Daddy says so.
Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I am Jen and this is Fundie Fridays, and usually on my channel I talk about different aspects of Christian fundamentalism while I do my makeup. But right now I am house sitting and I'm also outside, so that would be really hard to do my makeup and talk. I also got this whole shot set up and then the neighbors started to come out, so I'm not leaving. We're both just gonna have to deal with the awkwardness. Today we are talking about the Children of God, which is a sex cult essentially that was started in the 60s, and this topic was chosen by my lovely patrons of the official Fundie Fridays fan club. Once a month I let my patrons pick from a few different options of topics, and then they vote on which one they'd like to see, and they chose this one this month. If you would like to join my Patreon, it's only $3, so let's get started. Today's topic goes by many names, including the Children of God, Teens for Christ, the Family International, and yes, this is the same cult that Joaquin Phoenix was in. The Family were/are a pseudo-hippie Christian cult founded by David Berg in 1968, and despite their Greta Van Fleet aesthetic, this group was all New Age spirituality in the streets and child brides in the sheets. I'm sorry. And by the way, if you didn't catch the content warning at the beginning, I will give you another one because it's that bad. This episode contains discussions of child sexual abuse, physical abuse, incest, suicide. It's really bad. Viewer discretion is advised. And before we all dive down this rabbit hole and get really depressed, here's a word from our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. They've been a partner of the channel for a long time, and I am a bona fide user of the service. Surfshark provides its users with a streamlined experience and is packed with useful features that let you customize based on your privacy needs. So for the research of this video, I really wanted to watch the episode of Louis Theroux's Weird Weekends that featured the family, and that episode is only available on the BBC. And I'll let you in on a little secret. I'm not British. And if you're like me and want to watch this geographically restricted content, you're going to need a VPN. So I went ahead and hopped on to a server in the UK, headed over to the BBC website, and found the episode I wanted to watch. Now, I'm not saying that you should bend the rules, but let's just say if they ask you for a British postcode when signing up, there are websites that will generate one for you. And if they ask if you have a TV license, well, they aren't going to check. Just say you have one. Surfshark's multi-hop feature means that I can set my PC to appear from Britain and access all the good Louis Theroux docu-based content my little heart desires, because they have an unlimited devices policy. My boyfriend James and I are both able to connect with all of our devices, tablets, phones, desktops. I'm pretty sure you can connect with your gaming console. And given that I often have to search up some sketchy groups and controversial topics, I really appreciate that my IP is protected with Surfshark. Surfshark's got your back. They have a no logs policy, which means your internet service provider can't see your activities. It does not get much more secure than that, people. And since Surfshark is amazing, you guys are amazing, I'm amazing, I have a code for you. If you go to surfshark.deals/Fundie Fridays, you can save 83% off of a 2-year plan. 83%? That's out of this world. Plus, you get 3 extra months for free. A VPN is a product that everybody should have, not just people like YouTubers, because if there's something that the internet's good for, it's tracking you and trying to sell you stuff. So you should be using a VPN to mask your real IP address so that people can't price gouge you, rip you off, you name it. Surfshark has a 30-day money-back guarantee if you don't like their product for whatever reason. So once again, if you'd like to protect yourself, save money, and surf the web freely like it's supposed to be, then go to surfshark.deals/Fundie Fridays and use my code Fundie Fridays for 83% off a 2-year plan plus 3 months free. So without further ado, back to the video. Unfortunately, the Louis Theroux's Weird Weekends was copyright claimed by BBC, so I can't show you, but I do have a clip of Louis interviewing Rose McGowan later on in the video. So, the Family International, as it's known now, has gone through many name changes. They were originally named Teens for Christ in 1968 and later gained notoriety as the Children of God. Then they were later renamed and reorganized as the Family of Love, which was eventually shortened to the Family. The organization currently refers to itself as the Family International, and for continuity purposes, I will be referring to them as just the Family for most of the episode. The Family tries to come off as just your regular run-of-the-mill, wholesome, evangelical, traditional family. Something more sinister lurks just beneath the surface. I think this must be the type of traditional family that Josh Duggar was trying to defend. The leader of this group was David Brant Berg, and he was born February 18th, 1919 in Oakland, California. Berg preferred to go by his aliases of Moses David, Mo, King Moses David, the last end-time prophet, dad, or grandpa. He was married a few times, and his widow, Karen Zerby, is quite the character, but we will get to her later in the episode. David Berg was a megalomaniac pedophile with a charismatic personality that allowed him to manipulate thousands of people into giving him access to their children for his own horrific purposes. In 1968, he formed the group that would become the Family. They started in California, and they rapidly spread worldwide. The group lived in communes, first called colonies, later referred to as homes. There were usually 30 plus people living in these family-owned properties, and members had to give up all worldly possessions and outside relationships before joining. And if they didn't keep in line, they could be demoted to part-time members of the family. Strict gender roles were enforced, which meant that women were constantly cooking, cleaning, having babies, and of course, serving the men. The outside world was referred to as the system, and the people in it are called systemites. Leaders within the family were known as the chain, and you know what they say about the chain. By 1972, the family had over 130 communities around the world, and at one point the group claimed to have over 10,000 members. Here is a news segment about the group in England in the 70s.
An outpouring of religious fervor, particularly among young people, has been going on in the United States for the past several years. But now the Jesus movement is spreading beyond America, Bob Simon reports on its arrival in England.
The children of God have come to England. They brought their Bibles, their guitars, their enthusiasm, and their message to an old manor in the village of Hollingbourne in the county of Kent. The children of God, the most radical, the most controversial sect in the American-born Jesus movement, say things were getting pretty tough in Texas and California. The English countryside is literally a breath of fresh air.
He left Judea and departed again unto Galilee.
The commune here isn't all that different from the American models. There's the same constant reading from Scripture, the same rigid moral code. No worldly goods, no sex without marriage, no alcohol, no tobacco, no drugs.
So you know what Jesus was going to do?
The children of God are taught from the age of 2, not just to preach the gospel, but to practice it.
That all that believed were together, had all things common, and sold their possessions and goods, and parted them to all men as every man had need. They shared everything right there.
The grown-up children don't work for a living. The movement is utterly dependent on donations from outsiders. Back in the States, many outsiders were hostile. But here in Hollingbourne, the villagers have come to look on these strange people with biblical names as pretty good neighbors.
I've been living here, 6 years in Hollingbourne. And I haven't anything against these fellows.
I mean, everybody's their own way of living, everybody's their own religion. Like me, I'm a Catholic, I'm Irish. I could be chucked out tomorrow, but it doesn't worry me.
The Children of God now have 15 communes in England, including one right in the heart of Cockney London. And they're spreading quickly to Europe, Africa, Australia. But wherever they go, they have most success with people like themselves, young people from the cities, people searching for some inner peace which the establishment doesn't offer, which drugs don't satisfy for long. And most members, both the American founders and their English converts, are former drug users. The Children of God came under heavy fire in the United States. They were accused of teaching children to hate their parents, of holding them in a slave-like atmosphere. Here in England, most people greet them with a smile or a little dance. But there has been some opposition, mobilized by Conservative Member of Parliament John Hunt.
There are signs that there is a movement afoot to subvert young people, in particular to get at unbalanced and immature young people. I think one can say there are signs of perhaps hypnosis and brainwashing techniques being used in order to bring them into the fold and to keep them there.
Mr. Hunt's complaints led to a Scotland Yard investigation which cleared the movement of any illegal activities. The British government decided the Americans have every right to stay. So every Sunday, the children take a ride in their bus, called Prophet, and try to conquer Hyde Park for Jesus. Invariably, they attract a large crowd, including the police. But in England, compromise is usually possible, even with the law.
But you must stop playing musical instruments. If you want to do this, go along to the Department of Environment first and get their permission. Then everybody's happy.
Thank you. I really appreciate
You
it.
can't.
We love him, don't we?
The Children of God say they have very little time to get the message across. The end of the world, they believe, is coming in 20 years. But in the meantime, they can be thankful there's still a place like England, where eccentrics are appreciated, as long as they smile, and especially if they sing. Bob Simon, CBS News, London.
The family basically believed that David Berg was like God, and they had to do whatever he said. David Berg had a lot of prophecies, including he falsely predicted that California would fall into the ocean, the Great Tribulation would happen in 1989, and the Second Coming of Jesus would happen in 1993. David Berg was a notable pervert and pedophile, and he recalled in his letters how he was taught to masturbate in church by another boy his age. When his mother caught him, he was forced to masturbate in front of his father. Oftentimes, Berg would explicitly describe his sexual preferences and recalled that one thing he regretted was that he never slept with his mother. Holy Oedipus complex, Batman! David Berg was also outspokenly anti-Semitic, believing that the Jews were responsible for the death of Jesus as well as all persecution of Christians in the world. In support of his views of an international Jewish conspiracy, he cited the forged protocols of the Elders of Zion, but did not like being labeled anti-Semitic. Berg's beliefs were also homophobic as well, but he really has no room to talk. Berg was out there making lolly comics featuring himself as an anthropomorphic lion that has sex with children. Get the fuck out of here. I keep referencing these things, and I guess I should just let you know. What I'm talking about are these comics slash zines slash books sometimes called Mo letters. These were produced and distributed by Berg to his followers. These contained new rules, missionary instructions, and most importantly, they contained graphic scenes of sex with animals, angels, family members, and children. It is reported that David Berg published nearly 3,000 letters over a period of 24 years. Mo letters. More like molesters, am I right? Berg ruled with an iron fist through these Mo letters and also by communicating with the other branch leaders. Since Berg was, rightfully, in my opinion, paranoid about being caught, he did not allow himself to be photographed and he never made public appearances. Instead, he chose to represent himself as a lion in his comics. Berg was known to be very aloof and he stayed pent up in his commune surrounded by yes men and child brides. While the group presented this happy-go-lucky aesthetic, truly behind the scenes, it was very strict, and they had all kinds of random rules, like not wasting your time reading books and the proper way to wipe.
Everything we did was controlled because Grandpa said so in the letters. Everything he said in the letters was followed. Absolutely everything. Like, for example, how to wipe your butt. Seriously, 3 sheets of toilet paper and no more, because it's a waste of the Lord's money.
We were told how much coffee or tea we could drink a day. 2 cups, no more, otherwise you're walking in disobedience. We could never go out alone. You always had to go out with a partner. You had to do things the way Berg had laid down all these little physical laws, how you were supposed to have your hair, or how you're supposed to, whether you wear makeup or not, whether you wear skirts or trousers.
Free love, as they call it, was probably the main important belief in the group. And by free love, I mean some things they indulged in were sharing, aka swinging, grooming kids to strip for David, and encouraging members to think about having literal, actual sex with Jesus as a part of their worship services. The family describes its loving Jesus teaching as a radical form of bridal theology. They believe the church of followers is Christ's bride, called to love and serve him with wifely fervor. However, this bridal theology is taken further, encouraging members to imagine Jesus is joining them during sexual intercourse and masturbation. Male members are cautioned to visualize themselves as women in order to avoid homosexual relationships with Jesus. Many family publications and spirit messages claimed to be from Jesus himself elaborate this intimate sexual relation they believe Jesus desires and needs. The family imagines itself as his special bride in graphic poetry, guided visualizations, and artwork. Some family literature is not brought into conservative countries for fear it may be classified at customs as pornography. Arguably, the most infamous aspect of the family is their special brand of evangelism called flirty fishing. Flirty fishing, or God's whores as they were sometimes called, was the process in which attractive women from the family would go out and spread God's word via sleeping with men and luring them to join the family. This was seen as a sacred duty, and it was one of the more important teachings of the family. The women doing the fishing felt that their intentions to lead men to Christ were sincere, and they didn't see anything wrong with this practice.
Witnessing alone was not sufficient to win convert. David Berg dreamt up a more radical plan: flirty fishing.
Flirty fishing was considered going to the ultimate to win a soul for Christ. If he's hungry, you'll feed him, and then it goes on even further. If he needs sex, you'll give him that too, if that's what it takes to win him.
Was this literally going out to bars or to hotels to pick up men?
It sounds rather crude that way, because when you're sincere, you didn't look on it that way. You looked at you're going out and you're going to, by your physical charms, attract someone and talk to them. And if you could win them for Christ without giving them everything, that was so much, as far as I'm concerned, that was so much the better. But there were occasions in which we went all the way. A lot of the homes turned into pretty much brothels. It was like the whole temple worship. You know, the girls were just there.
And if the men gave you money, then that was fine?
Yeah. In fact, there was a letter that came out which said, make it pay. In other words, if you're giving them everything, they may as well pay you.
And your husband and your children all knew that you were having to do this flirty fishing?
Well, yes, they did. I must say again, it was rare in my case, actually. It was rare. But on the rare occasions, they did know. I thought the children didn't, but they did.
One woman even said that it was actually nice to get away and be with these men because they treated them more respectfully than their own cult members.
Childbearing, cleaning house, cooking, then they're having extra time, they're out on the streets winning people, selling their tapes and posters. So when the idea of actually sitting in a rather nice hotel having a meal with someone who's paying you a bit of attention, it's almost like heaven, it's a break.
Flirty fishing was an international effort, and in this clip, a leader named Simon describes coordinating big events where women are to go and sleep with government officials and other powerful men to lure them into the cult. He then goes on to talk himself into quite the awkward racist hole, so check it out.
Hello, God bless you. This is Simon and Esther. We're here at this home where we just finished an FF meeting for the area. One of the things that we just wanted to give a little synopsis of it at the end, just to fill you in on what was discussed and the things that we learned, the new plans and the vision for this area here in Osaka and the FFing. One of the things that was decided was that in order to really be able to bear some fruit, it would be good to have it a little more organized and to have some FF overseeing couple. Like with the MMs, we have overseers whose responsibility it is to make sure that everything's running properly and to coordinate things. So with FFing being such an important ministry and something we really need to attack on, and so Esther and myself were asked to do that. But the vision is to be able to coordinate any upcoming events at hotels or social events, places that we could meet some of these city fathers that would really be able to help keep us in the country. What we discussed was how important it is to make sure we're reaching the top. We started off by Esther, Queen of Ephesus, was read, and it was really convicting about how we need to make sure that we're reaching people that will be able to help us in our ministry. And one of the main purpose of FFing should be in winning contacts who will be able to help us to stay and continue the work that we're doing. We want to really go on an all-out attack to go to those places where we can find government officials, top city fathers, and to shake ourselves out of our ruts. We've been going along to the same type of places, and we really saw that we need to really break Dento, and which is always a battle here in Japan, because Dento is it means tradition. It's the spirit of just conforming and doing the same thing that everybody else is doing and not doing anything radical or different. We've learned about this, and it's a constant battle, though, that we're having to fight, as the spirits here in Japan aren't as obviously bad as they are, let's say, in India or, Thailand or other countries where it's obvious and easy to see the difference between the good and the evil. Whereas in Japan, the system looks so nice and so smooth, and the people are so friendly and nice, but they're really bound by the spirit of Dento, the spirit of tradition, which is also a real battle for us in the family not to fall into it. And it's something we're having to continually fight and continually attack. And but as we do, God helps us to defeat those giants. In reaching the top and reaching these top government officials, that's one of the things we really have to do, is to buck Dento, just to crash these different social events and to really pray and get desperate and ask the Lord to lead us to the places where we can meet these people and to be real faithful in our follow-up, because one little key can unlock a huge door to meeting a lot of different people. The vision that we have now is to really work on coordinating different teams by keeping in contact with the different fish that we have, making sure that they're being followed up on properly, that they're really bringing them into the family, not just to be attached to a girl only, but to really bring them into the family. And so we want to really go on the attack with this.
Researcher Bill Bainbridge attained data from the family suggesting that from 1974 until 1987, family members had sexual contact with over 200,000 people while practicing flirty fishing. If you believe the spokespeople of the family, and I don't, the practice of flirty fishing was officially discontinued, partially due to the fear of contracting HIV/AIDS. Flirty fishing wasn't the only sexcapade going on in this group. As I mentioned before, the family believed in a concept of sharing sexual partners.
Hi, Daddy, I love you. I hope you're here, right here next to me. I'm dreaming about you tonight. Good night.
I love you so much, especially when you said you'd kiss my sexy lips. I just love that. Good night. Thank you. We love you. We love you. Good night.
And tragically, no, there was no age limit on the partners. These abusive encounters were excused as consensual, but pretty much everybody knows that if you refused, you were ostracized, so it was kind of the choiceless choice. I'm sure you've probably already guessed this, but contraception was also banned in this group, so as a result of flirty fishing and sharing, many, many children were born and raised in this cult. Children including celebrities like Rose McGowan, Joaquin Phoenix, and the late River Phoenix. So here is the interview that I was able to actually play.
In your book, which I've read, you don't talk about how your parents came to join the Children of God, as it then was. Do you know that story? Because they were in Southern California, weren't they? I mean, I don't mean your parents, but that was the headquarters of the group. Because this would be the draft for the Vietnam War in the early 70s, late 60s?
Early 70s. So then he went to Venice, California, and met a man named David Berg, who is the founder of the Children of God. And then obviously went to Texas with him.
At that point, I think it was called, what was it called?
It was something else.
Teens for Christ or something like that. And he was recruiting kind of dropouts and kids, lost teenagers. He was quite a bit older. He would have been around 50 then, David Berg.
Yeah.
Something about his message clicked with these lost youngsters, right?
I don't even know if you say lost. Imagine what the world would have been like. People always say like people going into cults are lost, but I think people living in Ohio might also be lost.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I take that point.
no, maybe they were seeking. There's, I think, might be fundamental difference. They liked the idea of creating this world that, of course, got subverted towards, you know, the end when we were in it, and maybe still. So he started sending out people just kind of all over the world. Like, you start a chapter here, you start a chapter there. So my father and mother first went actually to a place called Hollingbourne Manor, which is somewhere in the English countryside, and restored that and lived there with a few people. And then from there went to Italy, and they met a duke, and we wound up living on ducal estates.
And your father was the head of the Italian chapter, I guess. Is that right?
I guess, yeah.
Most cults or extreme religious groups, there's something in there that means that they have an appeal for people, right? Whether it's a sort of psychological mechanism that means that it's in some way seductive or intoxicating. With the family, I don't have a clear sense, or with the Children of God, other than they had some hippie trappings, right? A lot of it was have fun, play music, hang out, don't be uptight. But at the same time, you're controlled. Is that more or less what it was?
I would say that sounds about right. We called everybody, the word for people that were not in Children of God or the family was systemites.
Because they believed in the system.
They're not wrong. That's the whole thing. You know, just because it's a cult doesn't mean it has some good attributes. Like most journalists that have written about me, especially American journalists, they really feel sorry for me. They're like, oh, poor thing, she didn't grow up in America. And I'm like, woo. I'm like, given the choice, I'll take what I had.
What were its cult-like characteristics?
Various things that made no sense to me at all, like sit on your bed and learn how to snap your fingers all day so God will teach you to drive when you're 16. I'm like...
That was something you had to do?
For like 8 hours, I had to snap my stupid fingers. And I was like, this is absurd. The kids were largely raised communally. All the women were called nannies. So if I say I grew up with a nanny, it sounds posh, but it was just communal raising. The education, interestingly enough, was... I was reading at 2.5, like full books. It was like kind of original Maria Montessori teachings that they employed there for that. So my education, granted it had some holes, no one taught me to tie my shoes till I was 9. When I got sent to America, I realized how good the education was and had been that I had already received.
Members that weren't lucky enough to escape the family suffered dearly. Adults and children alike were physically and sexually assaulted.
And for Miriam, singing here, harassment began while she was still a youngster.
You have to sort of grow up quick. So you're in the kitchen washing dishes and a guy comes up and hugs you and starts groping at your breasts and starts squeezing your bum and slobbering all over your neck, and you just learn to grin and bear it. That's what it's all about. One time when I was 11, there was this party going on, and they started to have these sort of like strip dance things. And they wanted us kids to do it too. So some of the kids went ahead and did it. And they tried to get me to strip as well. I was so scared. I was shitting myself. I thought, these people could do anything to me. These people could do anything they want. And I can't do anything because I'm only little. Because I'm only a child. So I got, you know, honey, why don't you share your body? You know, God gave you such a beautiful body, you know. They tried to get into your brain and tell you that Jesus wants you to do it. And I said, no, I don't want to. And I went into the loo, and I locked myself in the loo, and I cried my eyes out.
She couldn't stop them for long. Within a couple of years, Miriam, then 14, and Victoria, who was just 13, were pressurized by the group to perform stripteases.
The clip that I just showed you, and subsequently all of the clips that I've been showing you today, are from the documentary The Children of God from 1994, which is available to watch on Amazon. I'm going to give you a very stern warning about watching that particular documentary because they show a lot of uncensored footage of the child abuse, and personally I think 0 seconds should be shown. So unfortunately I watched it, and the images are burned into my brain right next to the audio clips of Warren Jeffs and his child bride. Ugh. And you wonder why I smoke.
I have not smoked all day. I'm about to flip the out. Smoke what? Weed. What do you think? I haven't smoked all day long. Where do you go? You need drug rehab? No, not really. I like to smoke about this time of the day. And all this is keeping me to where I can't go do it. Now, I'm gonna go do it. You're strung out on weed?
This documentary follows a group of the family survivors as they reunite in Costa Rica and revisit their old stomping grounds. A part that really stuck out to me and really bothered me in this documentary was when they told the story of their sister who had lupus. When she was 17, she was denied treatment by the family and died. And after she passed, David Berg did something unimaginable.
He wrote this sort of dream he had about Shuli. He went to heaven, and according to him, he saw Shuli there. And of course, his perverted mind went into, oh yes, and I had sex with Shuli in heaven, you know. And he went into some very gory details. And I remember I was extremely offended. And my sister Debbie, myself and Victoria, we got together and we thought, what a pervert. How dare he talk about our dead sister like this? How dare he?
In my opinion, the most horrific thing that the family has done is when they produced a series of childbearing books called Little Davidito. The star of these books was Ricky Rodriguez, and he went by Little Davidito in the book. He was an infant. He was actually born of Karen Zerbe, David Berg's wife, and someone that she had flirty fished. In these books were step-by-step instructions with pictures of how to groom and assault your child from infancy. If you look on the internet for these books, you will probably find more than you want to see, so I am begging you, for the love of God, do not look this stuff up. It's bad. As you can imagine, years of sexual abuse at the hands of cult leaders and your own parents can really just ruin your life and wreak havoc on someone. So in 2005, that little boy actually grew up and killed his caretakers and then himself.
You're watching a man unravel.
Just loading some of my mags here. Hope you guys don't mind if I do that while I talk.
Ricky Rodriguez had belonged to a sect that calls itself the Family International. He made this chilling tape 2 years ago.
This is my weapon of choice. The K-bar knife.
Just days after this taping, 2 people will die. Ricky is planning to murder his own mother.
She's got to pay dearly, one way or another.
Ricky would later escape from the group and marry and try to establish a new life.
He wanted the memory of his childhood to be gone.
But he had been too deeply scarred. He wanted revenge against his mother, which brings us back to his murder plan.
Maybe fate will smile on me. The god of war, the god of revenge. Maybe they will grant me happy hunting. I don't think there's gonna be much time to feel anything. Might hurt for a split second.
In his first bloody act of revenge, Ricky murdered his nanny. He cut her throat, then left her body in his Arizona apartment. But he was not done. He was still looking for his mother. This website, set up by people who were children in the cult then, says at least 30 of them have committed suicide, though CNN has no way of verifying that. As for Ricky Rodriguez, he never found his mother, a failure Ricky's wife says he couldn't live with.
He's like, baby, you love me? And I said, yes, I love you. You know I love you more than anything else in the world. And he said, then come and die with me.
On a deserted road, Ricky Rodriguez died alone. A single shot to the head 4 years after he fled the cult. As for his mother,
she's still the leader of the family, and she needs to be brought to justice.
But first, she must be found. Until then, she'll remain in hiding.
Besides Ramirez, many other people have come forward with testimonies of abuse at the hands of David Berg and or the family. Unfortunately, none of them have come to any sort of justice. David Berg's granddaughter, Mary Berg, testified that Berg sexually molested her when she was a young teenager. Another of Berg's granddaughters, Joyanne Treadwell Berg, spoke on American television about being sexually abused by David Berg. Jesus Christ! Slow down there, Woody Allen! There are, of course, countless other accusations, and I really don't want to get into gory details of every single one of them. If you want to, they're on Wikipedia. Spokespeople from the family deny all claims of abuse, and in this next clip that I'm about to show you, this man has the audacity to say to the camera that this abuse never occurred, and meanwhile, the producer goes ahead and plays clips of what he's talking about.
The spokesperson, Solomon, did agree to be interviewed.
Do you accept that the Padilla family were devoted members of the Children of God for nearly 20 years?
No, the Padilla family were not devoted members of the Children of God for 20 years.
Well, on their account, they devoted their lives, and they followed to the letter the teachings of their leader, David Berg. Are you saying that did not happen?
I understand that they say that. I'm telling you that did not happen. I know that for
Well, what were
fact,
they doing for 20 years?
I know that for 20 years, they basically lived a life what they wanted to do.
Well, that's completely at odds from what they are telling us.
Right.
So we have two different versions.
Exactly.
Why should we believe you?
You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe me. That's going to be up to the public to decide, and I'll just have to trust God that people will see the truth and the sincerity.
Sylvia Padilla has told us how she had to share following the teachings of David Berg. That is, she had to be available sexually to the men of the group. Now, do you accept that sharing went on?
Sharing is a very personal thing. Nobody comes in and tells you have to share with somebody. That's a very individualistic situation. The main concept is in sharing that maybe differentiates us from maybe other churches is that we believe that if two consenting adults, male and female, wish to have a relationship, that it's up to them. That's a very personal matter. I find it really difficult to believe that Sylvia would be forced by anyone to spend time with somebody else. That's absurd. How do you force somebody to do something like that unless they were slaves? Flirty fishing was another means of preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. Flirty fishing was never synonymous with sex. Flirty fishing is a sacrificial way of giving your life for somebody else. Flirty fishing was a means to be able to reach out to others. It could mean going to a bar and sitting and talking to somebody that's having a drink. It could be going to a park and sitting next to a person and telling them about Jesus. It could be getting up and dancing with somebody.
Can you explain why Children of God made explicit and often pornographic videos, some of them involving young children, for the use of the group?
The Children of God, the family has never produced pornographic videos. The family has never produced pornographic videos.
The Children of God?
The Children of God have not produced pornographic videos. Pornography is not allowed in our homes. We don't consider pornography to be, we consider that godly sex is good. In other words, God created sex. There's nothing wrong with that. God created it for our pleasure. We don't believe in pornography, and we do not produce pornography.
So, videos dedicated to David Berg involving scenes of masturbation, involving scenes of young children doing striptease routines, they have absolutely nothing to do with Children of God or the family.
They don't.
Why were they dedicated to David Berg?
I have no knowledge of any videos that are dedicated to David Berg. I'll tell you that the type of videos that we produce are videos that are dedicated to reach children and to help children or to help people in general.
Debbie Padilla has told us that she was sexually abused from the age of 9 onwards by a member of the group. Do you accept her story?
Whether it happened or not, I don't know. I wasn't there. I've heard about it, but I do know that when this supposed abuse took place, it was the Padillas living independently as heads of their own household and not living within a family home. That is their business.
So this had nothing to do with the Children of God?
This has nothing to do with the family. This has nothing to do with the family.
Do you accept that verse cog literature at that time did seem to indicate the acceptability of sexual contact with children?
Never.
Those Mo letters did not exist?
No, what I'm telling you is, within our family homes, within our literature, and within our practice, we do not believe in any crossovers between minors and adults whatsoever. It's an excommunicable offense. I feel bad that the Padilla family feels so bitter about their experience with the family, but I'll have to bring up to you that there are thousands upon thousands of people that have been family members or continue being family members or are friends of the family who are very, very thankful to God and to the family for bringing joy and peace and a purpose in their life.
Hey, do you guys want to hear a worse apology than the one from last week? In January 2005, Claire Barwick, a spokesperson for the family, said, "Due to the fact that our current zero-tolerance policy regarding sexual interaction between adults and underage minors was not in our literature published before 1986, we came to the realization that during a transitional stage of our movement from 1978 until 1986, there were cases when some minors were subject to sexually inappropriate advances. This was corrected officially in 1986 when any contact between an adult and a minor, any person under 21, was declared an excommunicable offense." The family claims that they don't do any of the sex stuff anymore, but why would anybody want to be a part of this group and be associated in any way, shape, or form with David Berg and pedophilia? Like, they could just go be a regular Christian. It's not like there's a shortage of churches anywhere.
You've given up everything, and you really have nowhere to go. You've given up money, houses, career. If you've been many years there, you can't even work, and you've got a lot of children. Those are physical reasons, but it's the spiritual. Mind control is the stronger one that keeps you there. You are under this total conviction that you're walking out of God's will, that something horrible will happen to you if you leave, because you are losing His protection upon your life. You are actually conditioned to think that the outside world, although there are many lovely people in it, that they are all under the control of the devil. There's that all over business of knowing that you belong to something that was actually controlling you, which stopped that sense of normality or real freedom. It was like this invisible cord holding you.
Since the 80s, the family has undergone a rebranding of sorts. They now try to project a wholesome Christian image, or at least they try to appear wholesome. What ended up happening is that they made some very creepy children's videos.
My mommy is having a baby. We'll give him a name. It's all been arranged.
And you'll never guess what they're called. Kitty viddies. Song from the beginning of this video, "Do It 'Cause Daddy Said So," is part of this collection, and I watched a lot of these videos. Fun fact, they're actually a part of YouTube Kids, so make sure you're checking on your kid's iPad and making sure that they're not watching Children of God propaganda.
Little eyes, close your sweet little eyes. Little eyes, go to sleep. Dream a dream, pray a prayer. Heaven knows you are there. Little eyes, go to sleep. Little stars, little stars, little stars in the sky. Little stars shining bright. Dream a dream, pray a prayer. Heaven knows you are there. Little stars shining bright. Little boys, little girls, little children in bed. Little boys, little girls, go to sleep. Dream a dream and say a prayer, 'cause heaven knows you are there. Little boys and little girls go to sleep.
Good night, neighbors. Sweet dreams.
David Berg died on October 1st, 1994 at age 75. Despite being aloof for decades, he ended up being found in Portugal. In 1994, his wife, Karen Zerbe, became the leader of the family, taking the titles of Queen and Prophetess. Zerbe married Steve Kelly, also known as Peter Amsterdam. Kelly then took the title of King Peter and became the face of the family international, speaking in public more than either Berg or Zerbe. After Berg's death, Karen became the leader of the family international. Although in 2009, as a part of the rebranding of the group, she gave a speech in Salt Lake City, and for the life of me, I can't find any video footage of it, but I do have pictures. And this is what the spokespeople had to say about the accusations of horrific abuse that came from this group. "That's all behind us," said two public affairs representatives for the church who were in Salt Lake City for the conference. "We acknowledge that mistakes were made and that there were excesses," said Claire Borowick, who had been with the Family International for 30 years. "We've taken stringent measures to right those wrongs and apologize to former members. Thus," she said, "we find it disheartening for people to focus so much on the past." Zerbe's speech in Utah was part of the family's coming out party, said Utah attorney Michael Homer, one of the conference sponsors. "The family has made a decision to begin constructing a more public profile," he said. "It plans to enhance its internet presence and adapt its message to the cultures in which it lives. It also plans to open the membership to persons who are not full-time missionaries and do not want to necessarily commit their entire day to family activities. This may include allowing members to live outside homes and not participate in communal living." Family leadership announced that they no longer believed that the apocalypse was imminent, and they also created a YouTube page where you can see Steve Kelly here taking the reins. Although they haven't uploaded in a few years, there is a Christmas message from Karen and Steve. Like, this bitch really has the audacity to wish us Merry Christmas and then go disappear off the face of the earth. Like, bitch, you...
Greetings and Merry Christmas. For those of you who aren't personally acquainted with us, my name is Steve Kelly, and this is my wife, Karen Zerbe. We want to wish you and your loved ones a wonderful Christmas and a new year full of God's love, peace, and joy.
Christmas is a special and often busy time of year. It's also a time to remember and appreciate the important things in life, the things that never change and that will always be important, such as family, friendship, love for God and fellow man. But most of all, Christmas is about love. God's love for all humanity in sending his Son to the world, and Jesus' life of love, which serves as a timeless example to us all.
Karen Zerbe is just as culpable as David Berg in the rampant sex abuse that occurred in the family. And the fact that she's still the leader, no one has anything to say about that. And we already touched on it earlier, but I feel like I need to bring this up again because the rest of the world apparently has forgotten. She literally sexually assaulted her own child and produced videotapes of it. Like, it blows my mind. The church still exists, although its website says that the group underwent a reorganization in 2010, and they are now an online community with 1,700 members. They also have a magazine called Activated, which is available in PDF form to read online. If you really want to check it out, it's for free. Guys, I just want to let you know that it's been several hours since I began recording, and this motherfucker next door is still cleaning his pool. You know what? Maybe I'm just jealous because I don't have a pool. I really shouldn't be so negative. The family is the perfect archetype of a cult. They even have their own perfect cult leader, David Berg. He honestly reminds me of if Warren Jeffs and Jeffrey Epstein had a baby. What he did to those children is unforgivable, and I cannot fathom how nothing has been done to bring these people down. I mean, there is literally proof of child sexual abuse images in the documentary that I watched. I mean, at the very least, couldn't people do DNA tests to prove that, like, incest was going on? It's also important to remember that we have compassion for people who do get sucked into cults. They are not stupid, and they are not selfish. People in cults are being abused, and that can wreak havoc on your brain and truly transform someone into the shell of who they used to be. And as miserable as people are inside of a cult, it's also equally terrifying to leave. These people do not have support systems, money, or a place to go. And if they integrate back into society, they have a hard time making friends and relating to people because of their very unique trauma. Now, that's not to say that you can't feel anger towards some of these parents. I know I did, because quite a few of them seem to be complacent, if you know what I mean. Berg instigated for sure, but a lot of people did willingly participate. In some regards, the family feels like the perfect storm, an amalgamation of every negative stereotype about cults all rolled up into one. Honestly, they really were that bad, and I can't believe that they are still around in some sort of capacity. That truly blows my mind. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. While there are celebrities that were a part of the cult that speak out, like Rose McGowan, there's also a book called Not Without My Sister, and it was written by Celeste Jones and Christina Jones, two sisters that survived the family, and this book is actually very prolific, and it has been used by the organization RAINN as a reference for child sexual abuse victims. So I know I knew about that book before I even knew about the family. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to consensually smash that like and subscribe button, leave a comment for the algorithm, and as always, I do have my sources in the info box below, as well as what makeup I used and where I got my outfits. I'm on pretty much all the social medias except Facebook. Recently, I've kind of abandoned that, so sorry if you've messaged me on there because I have not checked. I'm usually on Instagram, TikTok. We also have the Cenote Forum Discord. The link to that is on my Instagram. I do have merch available, including the Fundie Fridays logo, God Loves You in a Gay Way, Limp Bizkit University, Sexually Broken Loser, and the classic, probably everybody's favorite, Idle Hands with the Devil's Fleshlights. I'm so excited for fall to be finally trickling in. It has been just hot as fuck and humid as the devil's ass crack. I just made that up, but I'm trying to paint a picture of how humid it's been. I love you all very, very much. You are probably the best community anybody could ever ask for, and I have made so many friends and learned so much, and just you guys have expanded my worldview, and it's truly a gift that I get to do something that I'm passionate about, something that helps me be creative, something that helps me be constantly learning as my job. It's amazing. It's a dream come true, and it's all because of you guys. You are the most amazing supporters ever. And you know what? Some people always ask me, how can I support the channel? I don't have any money. You know what? It really does help when you like the video, because that boosts it in the algorithm, thus getting more views. So I make enough on Patreon. You don't have to feel obligated to ever give me money. And I also do take suggestions on pretty much any platform. You don't have to be a patron to leave suggestions. Next week is another highly requested video, Kenneth Copeland. And then after that, I am taking a week break because I need to work on some other stuff. In October, we got 5 episodes, and bet your ass I'm going to talk about Joe Rodriguez. I love you guys. Have a wonderful weekend, and be nice to each other, and drink water.
I hope I didn't say too much. God bless you.